Hello, hello. Obviously, this is not Althea Jackson. This is Ben Johnson, Assistant Director, Parks and Recreation, welcoming you to this week's edition of Metro Matters. I'm excited today to have as my guest Dr. Rob Fulk, the Chief Operating Officer for JCPS. As you can imagine, he's a little bit busy right now, so I appreciate him taking time to sit with me and share information with you. So we got a lot to get to. When I tell you summer has flown by, it has flown by. Today is July 24th, which means the first day of school is less than 2 weeks away. If you have not, I would advise you to print that schedule. Even doing our work with the community centers, we find it extremely helpful. So with that in mind, let's get right to it. Dr. Fulk.
Thank you for having me.
Good to see you again. We've met. I do quite a bit of work with JCPS, including on the Advisory Council for Racial Equity. He's come before us and shared some information, and I realized that he would be a good person to come share some with you all. So again, these 30 minutes are going to fly by, so let's get right into it. So tell the people, what has JCPS done to try to ensure that the rough start we got off to last year is not repeated this year?
I think characterizing it as a rough start is probably very generous. We had a very bad first day last year. So some of the major changes that JCPS has undertaken this year is, number one, all of the routing that is done within the district is done in-house. There is no other external agencies or vendors or anything that are working with our routes. Our Board of Education back in January approved a plan essentially that allowed us to hire an entire internal routing team. This routing team is made up of both former compound coordinators in JCPS that have 20, 30 years of experience understanding the streets of Louisville, the geography of Louisville, as well as some GIS professionals, that's Geographic Information Systems, that understand the programming side and all of the nuances to be able to construct routes. So I think the first thing that folks need to know is that we have routed all of the buses this year.
Locally.
100% within JCPS. So that's a good first step. The second step is a layer of technology that our buses didn't have before. So all of our buses now have real-time GPS, upgraded camera systems, so that if we know that a student maybe didn't get off on a stop, we can log in, look back over the last couple minutes, see if that student physically got off at that stop or not. So that'll allow us to be a lot more nimble to locate where kids are. They give turn-by-turn navigation. When the bus stops, the tablet will turn on, say, this is your lefts and rights. So for like newer drivers or drivers unfamiliar with a route, that's a help. But what I would say is probably one of the most important things that we have done differently this year is the amount of feedback and try before we buy for our drivers. So we listened to our Teamsters, and one of the biggest areas of concern was just having routes at an early time, being able to run them and being able to give feedback. So we bid routes last week. The Teamsters this week were able to come in for an extra week of pay, and they can run their routes as many times as they want. They can run their routes, 5 times a day, give feedback to their compound coordinator to transportation all week long. Then they come back fully on clock on the 31st. We will have a full district scrimmage on August 1st, August 2nd, and August 7th. And at each one of those points, the schools will give us the timing of the buses as they arrive and depart, anything that they see from their level, as well as our drivers being able to do the same thing. So what we have really wanted to do is make sure that it is predictable and is logical for our drivers day one. The next layer to that is in the board approved transportation plan. One of the things that was a big area of concern last year was the previous plan moved our drivers out of geographic regions. So to understand this concept is, if I'm a driver and I'm in a geographic region, maybe I'm on Lee's Lane compound. So I would hit like Farnsley, Conway, schools in that area. The previous plan, I might be driving over here, 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 which is technically more efficient, but is not good for the driver. So the Teamsters were clear on that. We were clear on that. And we got most of the compounds back into geographic regions, or if they're not, they're really close to geographic regions. So we're feeling pretty good about the number of changes that we've made. And most of it has been directly either from community feedback, our drivers' feedback, schools' feedback, and of course our Board of Education.
Great. That's interesting. You mentioned the compounds and the geographic familiarity, because I oversee the 14 community centers that Louisville Metro operates. I have staff, we have families, we have kids that are wondering about the travel time. And we also have some of our partners. We have partners who run programs out of our community centers. We partner with Dare to Care to provide meals. So what is it looking like in terms of kids getting back home, travel time, duration on the bus, things like that?
So we have a couple of things that'll be working into our favor a lot this year. One of the biggest things is a concept called mirroring. Mirroring means that I get on to the bus in the morning is the same bus that I get on in the afternoon. We've got close to 65 to 70% of our routes mirrored at this point. Okay. So that means the kid will get on in the morning with the same driver they get on with the afternoon. They know their driver. That also means that we can have more predictability in service. We know that one of the biggest issues were the late delays, late buses, late everything, and we know that's an area that we've had to put tremendous focus to for our community partners. That means we should be getting kids on time, home on time this year.
Okay. What about extracurricular activities? We can even limit them or specifically for JCPS. I know that was an issue or a concern last year about extracurricular, particularly sports and getting kids to, from games and so forth.
Yeah, our biggest hope and one of our number one goals in all of this is that we can get back to on-time service and focus on quality of service. Then that gives the student, if they're at the 3:20 dismissal or the 4:20 or the 2:20, a reasonable amount of time to get them home on the bus and then time to do their extracurricular activities.
Which is extremely important. So again, I do a lot of work with JCPS and I'm on a few of your listservs and what have you. I got some information about a pause period.
Yeah.
Can you explain that? And the information deadline was 7/22.
Sure. So one of the things that we noticed when we analyzed this problem and from the first day last year, we reach out to a lot of the big districts in the nation that are comparable to us. And what you find in most of the large urban districts in the United States is they will have a pause period where they will stop adding new stops for a set amount of time. And the reason that you do this is so that your drivers have predictability on the first week of school. So they'll pick a date and say, we will add no new bus stop. Now we may add kids to existing bus stops, but that doesn't change the driver's route. So if by a given date I have, let's say, 20 bus stops on my route, then from that date to the next date, we will not add a new stop on there. We also, as part of our negotiation with the Teamsters and their 5-year contract, we built in a guardrail for that our drivers now get 48 hours of notice on a new stop assignment. Not necessarily adding a kid to an existing stop. If we've already got a stop, that's just a matter of do we have capacity on the bus to let them off there, but adding a new stop. So we instituted a pause period starting the 22nd. Families had to do the transportation verification form, and that form essentially just captures for us whether or not the kid is a bus rider, a walker, a car rider. And then if they're a bus rider, then that triggers the queue of our routing team to then know that they have to route that kid. If they're a car rider or a walker, obviously that's a school thing to monitor and figure out. But what we wanted to be able to do was give our drivers as much predictability during the first week of school so that we could eliminate I bid on my route, it had 20 stops, but when I ran on first day, there's 40. And then all of a sudden I'm an hour late, and then that backs up the next start time and the next start time. We really our goal there was to eliminate that as much as possible.
So what would it take to trigger an additional stop? Because that sounds like a major thing.
So there are a couple of things. Right now, we will add a new stop for 2 specific populations in our district. One is a McKinney-Vento student, which is a student that qualifies for homeless services. We have to route students those in a timely manner, so we could not include them in the pause period. Or a student that is designated as special education and in their individual education plan has specifically special needs transportation. Those 2 students we will absolutely route as quickly as possible. Other students past the 22nd, we are working our list, but if you didn't do the transportation verification on time, then you will go into a queue, essentially that it may be up to around 10 days from the start of school to get a new stop.
Gotcha. So that's the IEP.
Yes, sir.
I think you might be the first person I've ever heard actually say it out as opposed to saying IEP, and I guarantee you the listeners and the viewers appreciate that.
Acronyms in education are something I've fought against for years.
Well, I think government is probably a close second.
Yeah.
I understand. That's why I caught that. So speaking of transportation and routes and students, how many drivers do you currently have?
As of today, we have 561 full-time drivers.
Compared to last year?
Last year, we started the year with about 578. Don't quote me on that. It might have been closer to 582, but I think it's 578.
Okay, so just based on those numbers, you're 17 less, but you're confident things are going to work.
Yeah, so we also, as a part of through this entire process, we build a lot on what our predictability of attrition. So we know that in a couple of days, 8/1 is our largest retirement date. State employees, bus drivers, they got to give 30 days notice on retirement. A lot of them hit the end of their career cycle around this July, August time. They give us their 30 days. August 1 retirement date means I'm retiring at the end of September. So 7/1 and 8/1 are our two biggest retirement dates. We were fortunate this year that our 7/1 retirements, we saw a lower trend. But you know, when I look at numbers that keep me up at night, that's one that I'm nervous about is what we look like on 8/1.
Right. It's funny because this conversation is flowing perfectly. So you're talking about losing drivers' retirement, which is a wonderful thing for those who have put in that amount of time. So if someone wants to become a bus driver, what's the process?
So you apply with JCPS, you can go to our website, but there are several steps to becoming a bus driver. And if nothing else, I hope today that the listeners understand that it is a time, labor-intensive process, and these are highly trained, skilled people that we put through many different statutory requirements and district requirements to assure that they're transporting kids safely.
I think it's a little more important than a lot of people realize. Oh,
Absolutely.
You're driving kids. Well, wait a minute. That's a big vehicle and a lot of personalities.
So from start to finish, I'm 21 years old. I've got a valid driver's license. I have really essentially no criminal convictions. If I have ever had a moving violation with my vehicle, I can't have more than 6 points on my license. If I have up to 3 to 6 points, then there are certain offenses that disqualify you from that. You know, if one of those was reckless driving, if it was like, 0 to 15 speeding, that might not disqualify you, but another higher point value would. Then I have to pass a physical, and that physical, like there are some hurdles there, especially like someone like me who's a bigger guy, I would trigger to have a sleep study because of the size of my neck. Yeah. So then that can delay an applicant up to 30 days to do that. Then there is the standard background checks that we do with any school employee, the criminal background check, the CAN check, all of those checks to assure that they'll be safe with students. Assuming we have gotten through all of those hurdles, then you have to start the process to become a driver. There is a few weeks of classroom curriculum for the CDL. So if you come to us and you have no CDL, you've got to do the CDL training first. And we will train you on our dime. Now we will have you sign a form that says if you leave, you're going to have to pay us back in a certain amount of time. But we'll train you to be a CDL driver. Once you've got the CDL, you road test for the CDL. After you've road tested for the CDL and you're good to go, we put you in the school bus curriculum, which is a few more weeks. We do all of that. Our trainers, Kimberly Kuntz is the head of our training department, and she's absolutely awesome. We'll train you on all the stuff that you need to know for Kentucky school bus curriculum. Then you get what's called your S-Class permit. Your S-Class permit is the school bus endorsement. You have to go to the DMV, go to the county clerk, just like you would do for a normal driver's license, do a written test. You take the written test, you pass that, your clock starts 14 days. You have to hold it for 14 days while we keep training you, and then you get a road test. The Kentucky State Police conduct the road test. Once you pass the road test, you're good to go and you're on the road. Start to finish, it can be up to a 5 to 6 week process.
All right.
And there's a lot of hurdles where we lose folks because it's not as easy. Like I once said to the board, it's probably easier on paper to hire a superintendent than a bus driver because the superintendent qualifications are pretty narrow. Right. And bus driver, there are so many statutory requirements and things that we have to do to get them there. The good news is for JCPS, we will hold your hand through the entire process.
So one more question before we take our break and give callers an opportunity. The status of the TARC relationship, opportunity.
So we are really excited to partner with TARC. This is one of those innovative solutions where you have multiple government and quasi-government entities that try to solve a problem. So we have our 70 TARC drivers right now, and they are all somewhere in that process that I just explained. So some of them came to us with an existing S endorsement, 12 of them. They're ready to go, they're ready to rock and roll. The rest of them are somewhere on that process, either in the permit phase, the road test phase, or the classroom phase. And as we get through that, they started with us on the 1st of July, and then we had the July 4th holiday and all that. So we're close to 20 days or so in. As they get through all of that, we will get them ready and get them on the road. And I would be remiss if I didn't shout out two other partners that we have in this. One is the Kentucky State Police and the Kentucky Transportation Department. So when I talked about the S-Class permit, a lot of our TARC drivers need to test for the S. That's done at the county clerk. I've got a 16-year-old son. I'm trying to schedule him for a driver's license. If you've done that in the last couple of years, you know that's a 3 to 4 week wait to get a test. Kentucky State Police, we call them. They came up yesterday and tested all of our TARC drivers that needed the S permit on site so they didn't have to go anywhere.
Oh, that's great.
Which is really awesome. And the transportation cabinet came with them. And it was just one of those instances where we have government entities that are working together for the common good. And I was really thankful for that.
Okay. Well, we'll be back in a moment. Y'all know me, a couple of quick commercials. So, Mary T. Maher Aquatic Center will be closed for the month of August as we try to get some things together. It's kind of an annual maintenance and upgrade opportunity. So just so you know, for the month of August, Mary T will be closed. But on August 31st, we'll be having a Labor Day Bazaar to raise money for the for Christmas camp that we're doing in a Christmas giveaway. So we want to invite you to participate in that. Our seasonal pools are closed on August 3rd. So if you want to get out there and get your last little splash in, you have until August 3rd. But we are still excited that next year we will have 2 brand new aquatic pools open, and we are truly excited about that. We also have our fall soccer and little futsal leagues open for registration out of our Cyril Allgaier Community Center. And again, we'll be right back.
Jemiah Doherty received her master's degree in teaching and is now making a difference in the lives of JCPS students, and so can you. If you're looking for a meaningful career, the Louisville Teacher Residency Program will set you on a path to a master's degree and becoming a certified teacher in just 1 year. Residents receive a paid stipend, tuition support, and health insurance while gaining classroom experience. Start your journey to the classroom with the Louisville Teacher Residency Program, where we teach equity and excellence.
Find a career that supports you and your family with great benefits and schedules. Apply to be a JCPS bus driver today at jcpsbusdriver.com.
All right. Ben Johnson back with Dr. Rob Fulk, Chief Operating Officer of JCPS. Again, a lot of information, and we're on the back half of the show. So let's jump right back into it. Car rider traffic. We've talked a lot about busing and transportation. Give the folks the information on that.
So our focus this summer has been on the schools that have either lost transportation as a result of the board decision or we know are traditional pain points. So we've got about 25 schools where we've reassessed traffic patterns, restriped, put lane delineators in. In some cases, they've been either capital construction projects have started to widen roads there or add existing parking spaces, or are in the process of starting. We onboarded a specific traffic position, which is not something JCPS has had in the past. It's kind of been farmed out among safety and environmental, but we went out and we sourced a guy with about 40 years of experience in traffic work that is heading up that project for us.
Great, great, great. So you mentioned capital projects. There have been a few announcements lately about new schools. Yeah. What's going on with that? That's always exciting.
We are in the second year of a 10-year plan where we are doing some really bold building in the district. Right now, we've got a Seneca rebuild, which will be starting in the next couple of months. Carrick rebuild that will be started. We are building Du Bois High School, which I always like folks to understand that is the first new high school that we have built since Ballard High School. Ballard High School was 67, if I remember correctly.
That's close enough.
Yeah, and then probably I would say one of the most important and historical builds that JCPS done is the Hudson Middle School, which will be at 18th and Broadway, and that is the first school that is a secondary school that we have built in the West End since Muhammad Ali was in second grade.
And there was a pretty important donation or partner that allowed that to happen. What was that about?
So Molina Healthcare worked with us essentially to donate that property to JCPS. We had a big press event out there a few weeks back. The governor and lieutenant governor came, and you know, we were just really thankful that Molina was interested in giving that property to us to benefit the community. Hudson will be right across there from Perry Elementary, and we meet with the architects in the next couple of weeks, and then once we get some design proofs on, we'll get rolling.
And so the community can expect that to be completed a couple years?
Typically, Dr. Polio and I will differ on this. He always wants them as quick as possible. I go with the more conservative estimate where I say 2.5, 3 from shovel to the ground to when it's completed.
All right, man, that's good news, and that's pretty historic. So that's great. And so you mentioned that's another partner. So there are a lot of people, a lot of organizations that are really trying to work together for the betterment of the community. And I don't think we stress that enough.
No, I agree with you. So we have great partnerships in JCPS. Our partnerships with the Y, with CEP, with Metro, with local cities throughout the city, the small incorporated cities. And I don't think we stress that enough. Like, we as a district have close to 100,000 students that we educate on a daily basis from the one end of the county and the other. And there are just a lot of people that work very hard to make sure that our students have the best experience they can have.
Yeah, and people don't realize even at the community centers during COVID, we were places where people could pick up and drop off the books and then the supplies. And post-COVID and since, even pre-COVID, we've done parent-teacher conferences because of the busing situation. A lot of times it was easier for parents to come to the community center, so we've done that. We've helped host field days. We've done some of the Lit and the first satellite office was actually at the California Community Center. So again, people just don't realize it takes a lot to do that, and I wish more people would also step up and be willing, not just be patient with JCPS, but hold them accountable, but also be willing to say, you know what, this is what I can do as an individual, or this is what my organization can do. There's always opportunities there. You mentioned that I was overly polite, which I don't think I've ever heard, in regards to the first day last year.
Yeah.
What are the unknowns that I'll say you are on the lookout for?
Yeah, so our focus has been, since the board made the decision of what transportation would look like, after that decision was made, our entire focus has been on how do we prepare for a successful first day. And there is a tremendous amount of back-end work that no one ever sees to make that happen. We essentially started from scratch this year and looked at every single system that touches first day. And it's not just operations, so I'm not going to say that it is my vision at all. Every division in JCPS has touched this work, from academics to the schools division to culture and climate to our data, all of them, in looking at every process that we use for first day, how we track buses, how we report compound clears, what do we do with missing students, how are we assuring that stops are safe, how are we assuring that we know where all of our buses are and that our timing is correct, and really just looking at it from a standpoint of we have to look at last year as being a very low place. So how do we assure that that doesn't happen again? And our superintendent has led the charge on that. I mean, he has been very clear on his expectations for first day this year. And I can tell you, we have a lot of people that have put in a lot of time this summer and leading up to this, that we cannot wait for the 8th just so that we can put it behind us, and then that will be done.
The 8th or the 9th?
Yeah.
So with that in mind, and you mentioned this earlier in terms of technology on the buses and so forth. So the inevitable is going to happen. Things happen, human, mechanical, technology, or what have you. So what is in place for a parent in particular if a bus is late or they have a question on that first day, and maybe even the day before, because some people will get information and won't respond to it?
So one of the things we also have tried to do is simplify the amount of places parents can go so that it is easier and they can get a good, quick answer. 485 Ride is the best place to go. 485 Ride opened on Monday. Right now, right before I walked in here, I asked our lady that's running that center what our response rate was, and our resolution rate. And so far, 94% of the calls that we've had have gotten a resolution while they're on the phone.
And that number is live.
That's live right now.
What times?
Oh goodness, 8 a.m. to 4:30.
I don't know.
Yeah,
Well, you get it back to me,
I
Bill.
will.
Because that's important too.
Yeah. And then as we get closer to the beginning of school year, like that'll go through the first couple of weeks. And we have overstaffed that department to the point where we feel pretty confident it can field the call volume. There was about 20 some odd people in there today answering the phones.
Okay, cool. I'm just going to throw this out there because I know they're going to say it.
Yeah.
The hours for that are going to be extremely important, especially on the back end.
Yeah.
So I just thought about that one piece of unsolicited advice.
That's good.
So I think we're coming, as I said. So 2 very important questions. You are in charge and everybody's going to do exactly what you say. What can the community do, particularly parents and students, to absolutely make sure the first day, the first week goes well?
So the first thing is, if you are a bus rider, check the bus teller, which is the online assignment for bus stop, up to the day of. And it is very important to understand this as we shift routes, balance buses, make sure everything is working. Like timing can change up to the day of, and that is normal. That's every year. Like you want to make sure that you're shifting up to the day of, but we just want to make sure that parents don't look today on bus teller and go, I'm solid. Like look the night before and make sure that you've got that information good. And I would say the absolutely not one is do not expect perfection the first day. Every first day in any school district is not indicative of what it should look like on day 10 or day 20. If we think that there's a clear time that we're going to get to, it's probably going to be a little bit later on the first day. There are always things that happen that are unplanned. There can be a wreck on 64 that slows down the buses. Just give us some grace and some patience on the first day. But most importantly, if you're a bus rider, you check bus teller up to the day of.
Okay, great. Well, we appreciate that. I think we are pretty much right on time, but I made you all powerful. So the absolute thing for the kids, for the young people, because there are so many. How many is JCPS transporting this year?
About 46,000.
Okay, so if you were talking to the young people, do us a favor and
once you get on the bus, greet your bus driver, get in your assigned spot, get on the bus quickly, off the bus quickly, and then have an outstanding first day of school. And
an entire school year.
Yeah.
Great. So appreciate your time, Dr. Rob Fulk, Chief Operating Officer at JCPS. And again, I never get out of here without running a few commercials. So we also, in Louisville Parks and Recreation, we have the Portland Festival. Saturday, August 24th, which is the 100th anniversary celebration. Music in the Park will be at Farnsley Mormon on August 15th. Louisville Parks and Recreation in Trees, Louisville is working on a tree plan. You can hear more information about that at the J-Town Library tonight from 6 to 7 p.m. A virtual Q&A session on August 7th. The St. Matthew's Library, August 24th. For the survey and for more information, go to www.louisvilletreeplan.org. You can always go to bestparksever.com to find out more about what we are doing and some of the other fun things we're doing, including participating with the Shelby Park Neighborhood Association as well as the Olmsted Parks Conservancy with a back-to-school bash this Saturday from 5 to 8 in Shelby Park. And JMF, Jefferson Memorial Forest, which is also a part of us, is having a canoe day at Chickasaw from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. on August 24th. So this is Ben Johnson signing off for this week's edition of Metro Matters. And if you don't do anything else, please, as our babies are going back to school, be more alert, be more patient, and give yourself more time, because not only are they on the bus stops and or walking to school and being dropped off out of cars, we have more traffic on the roads, and we want to make sure that they all have an outstanding school year. Thank you very much, and we'll see you next time.